Hi everyone, we're going to learn how to convert from rectangular coordinates to polar coordinates, and we're going to use the fact that we already know from trigonometry our circle formula that x squared plus y squared equals r squared. Remember, we're going to be given an xy. For example, the first one we're going to do is going to be 3 comma 0, and we need to convert it to r theta. So basically, our r is going to come from the square root of x squared plus y squared. So let's do that first. So r is equal to the square root of 3 squared plus 0 squared, which equals the square root of 9, which equals 3. So our r equals 3. Now for our angle, we're going to use tan. I'm going to be careful here because we're going to find the angle, we have to do inverse tan, and note that it's undefined at negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. So basically we're picking values from, if you remember your inverse functions, negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. You have to be careful with that. That's the only thing. So basically in this case we have tan of theta equals y, which is 0, over 3. So theta equals inverse tan of 0. So that is 0. Where tan is 0 is at 0. So basically these end up being the same answer. Okay? So let's do some more that are a little more complicated. Let's do 0, comma 2. That's your xy. And we want to move along to convert it to r comma theta. So the first thing we're going to do is r equals square root of x squared plus y squared. And this gives me square root of 0 squared plus 2 squared, which equals the square root of 4, which equals 2. So here we already have our r is 2. Now for our angle, we're going to use tan of theta equals 2 over 0. Now that's undefined here. So basically what that tells us that we're at pi over 2. Because remember I told you it's undefined at these places here. So we're at, since it's undefined, theta equals pi over 2. So we're going to put pi over 2 here. Alright? The next one we have is negative 1, comma 0. That's our xy. And now we want our theta. And so, actually let me move this. We want r theta. I'll put it over here. So r is the square root of x squared plus y squared. So square root of 1, which equals 1. So my r is 1. And my angle is going to be tan of theta equals y over x, which equals 0. So when you take inverse tan of 0, you get 0. Well, actually, at negative 1, the points lie on the negative axis. So since we're on the negative axis, we're going to let this equal pi. So we have 1, where are we at? Let's see. 1 comma pi. And since this lives in the negative axis, so basically we're over here. So you always kind of have to remember where you're at here. We're here, so it still has to be, this is going to have to be negative 1, because when you do the r, it's plus or minus here. So we're going to have to be careful with that. All right. The next one, we're going to have 0 comma 2. 0 comma negative 2. So we have r equals square root of 0 squared plus negative 2 squared. And it's the square root of 4, which equals 2. So, and remember this lives in 0, negative 2 right down here. So just remember where this lives at, because they should be at the same point. So our angle is going to be y over x, which equals 0 over negative 2, or negative 2 over 0, sorry, which is undefined. And we know tan is undefined at pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. Since it's right in this area here, we have to pick negative pi over 2. So my answer is going to be 2 comma negative pi over 2. All right, let's do some more of these. The next one we have is point 1, negative 1. Now this lies in quadrant 4. You know, you can kind of look at this 1, negative 1. It's right there. So now let's take a r, which is the square root of 1 squared plus negative 1 squared, which equals square root of 2. Now when you take tan, we're going to get tan of theta equals negative 1 over 1. And inverse tan would be tan inverse of negative 1. And that equals negative pi over 4. Okay, because remember we're restricted, our angle is restricted from negative pi over 2, whoops, can't equal it, to pi over 2. So our answer is going to be square root of 2, comma, negative pi over 4. All right. Let's do a couple more. We have the point negative 3, comma 3. And let's look at where this lives. It lies in quadrant 2, just so we kind of know where it's at. And we're going to take r as square root of negative 3 squared plus 3 squared, which equals the square root of 18, which equals 3 square root of 2. All right, that's your r. And then our tan is going to be negative 3 over 3. So theta equals inverse tan of negative 1. Now remember that we have to use negative pi over 4 here. So this is going to equal negative pi over 4. However, we're in, so negative pi over 4 is down here. So since we're in, we have this, we're going to have to add it pi to get it back up here. So our angle is actually going to be 3 pi over 4. So you have to kind of always look and see where this lives to get it. So we've got our r is 3 square root of 2, and our angle is 3 pi over 4. Okay, let's do one more. We have square root of 3, comma 1. Okay, this lies in quadrant 1. That should be kind of easy if it's in quadrant 1. So we have the square root of 3 squared plus 1 squared, which equals square root of 4, which equals 2. So my y is going to be, my r, sorry, is going to be 2. Now we're going to do tan of theta equals 1 over root 3, or you could just say, let me just write it the right way. All right, 1 over square root of 3. And if you tan inverse or inverse tan, we could remember this is just square root of 3 over 3. And this equals pi over 6. This was kind of easy because we're already in quadrant 1. So we have pi over 6. All right. Let's do one more. We have, because this one's a little harder. We're going to do this point. Negative 2, comma, negative 2 square root of 3. So we already know this lives or lies in quadrant 3. So doesn't make a difference. So it's negative 2, somewhere in here. It's quadrant 3. So r equals the square root negative 2 squared plus negative 2 square root of 3 squared, which this gives you the square root of 16, which equals 4. All right? So remember that this is the 4 part coming down on the 4. Now, tangent of theta equals y over x. So our angle, these cancel, is inverse tan of square root of 3, which equals pi over 3. But pi over 3 is in quadrant 1. So what we're going to have to do is subtract pi, and we're going to get pi over 3 minus 3 pi over 3, which gives us negative 2 pi over 3. So our points is going to be 4, comma, negative 2 pi over 3. All right. You just have to make sure that you already know how to plot the polar coordinates, so you kind of know what to add and subtract to get to the right conversion here. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye-bye.